So this was the first bolt of blue and white checked cloth that I made, and I strung it widthwise in the house like this, and showing you that it's got a nice tension. I actually wound up with a lot of problems, but there it is strung, and there it is off the loom and finished with Timmy modeling for you. Isn't it beautiful? Time to string up a new one. Here we go. I'm gonna make some more of this. Starting now. Look at me stringing it up. Actually, I thought I edited some of this. I guess I did. Anyway, I had no idea I was going to run out of wool, or I'd have made this a much shorter warp, and the wool would have lasted longer. It's going to be an interesting fabric when I'm done. Okay, I'm about to begin the original first narration, so if it sounds like I'm starting the video, I was, till I found some more stuff to add. Oh, if you don't like untangling things, you don't want to start weaving. You gotta like string. Tangles and tangles of string. Many tangles. And walking. You have to like walking back and forth, because nobody's gonna warp your loom for you. Nobody will ever warp your loom. I used to have a floor standing loom, and I warped it with plastic covered copper wire. Basically telephone wire. I had salvaged a length of cable which was, I think, 30 feet long and over 120 strands of different colors. All the typical colors. I mean, they were repeated. There was bundles of bundles. And I had one of these I had a great big homemade floor standing loom with, like, it had foot pedals to move the handles around. It had string handles, and that thing was well beyond my abilities. But I strung that puppy up with copper wire, and I wove silk, scraps of shiny silk and satin, and gold lame, and scraps of fur, and made some really interesting little mats on it. And then I got rid of it because it was taking up a lot of room in my living room, and I wanted a color TV. I wonder if anybody ever managed to weave anything decent on that since the original owner. I expect it was a pioneer woman and her husband made it for her. Or she made it and her husband helped, or she did it all by herself. Who knows? A lot of those women could do a lot more than we give them credit for. And it was painted pink. I believe it. Yeah, it was pink, which was kind of cool. All that ever remains of it in my life was, and I think I've thrown it out. Maybe I've scanned it. Pardon me, I've got a frog in my throat. Get out, frog. And it was a photograph of the darn thing with the wires tangled all over the place as I slowly, gradually wound them on. It was a scary looking picture. I've been lacing it up backwards. I'm lucky I figured it out this early. Yes, that's right. That's what I said. Backwards. I put the front to the back and the back to the front. And I did that the last time I set one of these up. And in that case, actually, how did I solve it? Because I had the warp finished. I think I actually wound the warp on the back roll and then wound it back onto the front roll that way. Or something. I don't really remember. But you saw the cloth at the beginning of this video. That's the cloth I made from it, so I clearly solved the problem that time. But in this case, I'm going to unroll all those, I'm going to roll all those threads back up, untangle them as I go, and they were beginning a little tangled already. Back and forth, lots of walking. And yeah, I succeeded. I did it. This is where the whole bit about you've got to have patience. You just have to have patience. There's absolutely no point in pretending that what you expect is going to be what you get, or that you have any right to anything except dogged persistence in finishing the job. And that's the case with anything worth doing. There's going to come a point in time where you have to just enact the old dogged persistence and keep going, and don't give in to frustration. Don't say, oh, it should be this way, it should be that way, how dare it be this way, and get angry and punish the problem by not continuing to work on it. I mean, if you have to get up and go take a break, hey, that's cool. That's a good strategy. Get up, go make a cup of coffee, roast some marshmallows, have a snack, go visit a friend, put the work away on the shelf for a day. Although in a case like this, well, I guess at this point now, I could have put it away for a day, but you know, I didn't want to keep waiting. The weather's going to get cold again, and I only have the bus for a short time, and here I was, I'd already fired up the heater, and I was running out of firewood too. So it would have been just pure foolishness to let frustration cause me to quit at this stage of the game. There's just too many reasons not to. So, you know, patience is a thing you acquired through exercise, not a thing you're born with. It's a thing you learn by making the decision to be patient over and over again. And in time, that decision gets easier and easier. And so it did here. And I got that loom strong. Working hard. You can hear my current musical obsession, hopefully faintly in the background. I don't know how many seconds of a given song you can get away with having before it flags the copyright censorship. But me and Mary, oh man, am I ever loving that song. Wow. It's just, actually I thought she was First Nations when I first saw her, because I first saw that song, and it's about First Nations. It's a First Nations story. It's basically a white guy comes out and plays with the affections of an Indian girl, and then takes off when he's had enough, and she, in her anguish, chases the train, tries to catch it, because she's like, you know, I'm going to ask him why he'd leave me. And her horse, the way it goes is, though my horse had the stronger will, though my steed had the stronger will, the iron horse had the longer stride. And the iron horse is riding free, so she, you know, and she doesn't catch it. It's just a song of heartbreak, really. And I changed perspective again. I actually thought that the teeth were visible better than this. The teeth have slots and holes in them. At this point, you bring a loop through a slot with each one. You loop it, you tie it on or loop it around the warp stick, and then you bring it through a slot using this plastic hook, and then later you'll put one of each pair through the eye. So at this point we're just doing the slots, and later we'll do the eyes when it's all wound on at the back of the loom. Then you've just got the last 12 inches or so, and you can bring them through. And I'm pretty sure I include that in this video, so you can see that later on, where I put them through the slots. The purpose of this is called a rigid heddle. A heddle is what the plastic frame is, where the yarn goes through. And the purpose of a heddle is to separate the alternating threads. Now, in a rigid heddle, you get only one pattern, alternating threads. Up, down, it's just a basic weave. There's none of those fancy pattern stuff. For that, you need to get a variety of different kind of heddles. And in fact, if I've got a second heddle kit, but I don't have any more matching heddles. If I had a second heddle kit, I could get a little more complicated. I could actually split it up into even more thread choices, so that I could have A, B, C, and D, where A and D could both be up, and B and C could both be down, but then I could also reverse it. And I don't even know yet what all I could do. That's that thing where you learn. In the background, I'd like to tell you about these paintings that are on the wall there. The top one is a prairie lily, and the bottom one is a winter sunset scene in the snow with the fence, and there's tracks working their way off into the distance. And I had a little fun with perspective and ran a tree through the scene. And in making these, what I would do is, first I did a whole lot of research on stained glass, and I learned how glass does and doesn't cut. So what kind of lines would and would not show up in a stained glass work. So these are basically like cartoons for stained glass. You could actually bring them to a stained glass worker, and he could actually cut the glass to make it work, to create these. But I just painted acrylics. So I put China marker. I drew in the designs on the one side with China marker. Then on the other side, painted the black lines, painted in acrylic using various colors on the brush to simulate that multicolored glass effect that Tiffany used in his work. And then redid the lines in black so they look good from both sides. Now the prairie lily one is a little bit damaged by hot, cold out in my gazebo, and it's got a bit of an alligator texture to the paint, but it still looks wonderful, and I've got a sheet of acrylic to protect it. I've moved to the front of the bus. This is the same job from the other perspective. The camera is actually sitting behind the pole on which all of the yarn is wound, but that's just below out of frame. I've got sleeping bags hung up on either side of the doorway, and when I'm not warping a loom, the quilt at the back and the sleeping bags on either side of the doorway are actually closed, allowing me to warm up the bus, just the little living area part of it, so that it takes less electricity if I'm using the electric heat, less propane if I'm using the Mr. Buddy, and less wood if I'm using the wood stove. Yes, we have 3 kinds of heat, and good. It still can't cope at 20 below, but I will be able to tolerate mild Canadian winters in BC. And I'm going to do a little research and find out if there's other places in Canada where I can spend the winter where it doesn't really get more than, say, 5 or 10 below overnight. Because I think the bus can handle temperatures down to that without freezing out my parrot or my little hairless dog. A little hairless dog minds very much when you freeze him out. So, oh yes, so many broken threads, so many and so many. This damn moth-eaten yarn. The secret to, yeah, I think I'm losing track. I've had to redo some of these recordings, and I'm losing track of what I have and haven't talked about. But yeah, I tied a lot of weaver's knots. In fact, I made an entire video sitting in the kitchen at my desk making weaver's knots one after another after another. I'm going to upload that separately at a different time. But yeah, I also... what was I doing there? I don't know, but here I am. Oh, the white was nice. The white didn't get moth-eaten. So I was able to just play it out gently as I went. And then I get to the blue, and it breaks, like 3, 4, 5 times per run. Patience. Patience is a virtue. Patience is a skill. Patience is a quality. But you must wait until you have it. Yay! How much fun is this? I'm getting sore tired of it. I'm going to take a break pretty soon. And making that break really attractive, I still got a bag of marshmallows in a bus, and the coals on that fire are starting to get nice, really nice. So that'll be great. Oh, dead south. That's the Dead South out of Regina. Check them out. They're really good musicians. I am playing YouTube music videos on the TV via my Chromecast while I work up my loom. Works good. And I'm taking a marshmallow break. Marshmallows. These are the ones that I bought at the corner store, and they're a mess. They've obviously been overheated at some point. Stored just all wrong. Got better ones, but I got to go through these ones. I tried to get my guest to help me eat them, and no, he wasn't having it. I come from, I don't know, my family were good hosts. There's a hosting tradition in our history, obviously, because You don't go to a home in my family, with my family, and they don't trot out some treats. You know, you stop in to visit, you get treats. You get coffee, you get cookies, whatever, you know, whatever's on. In my case, depends on how long you're there. You know, whatever I have a craving for, you get, and I always get out the best because you get out the best for your guest. In fact, my mother used to save the best for the guests, and I always resented it because I was never included when the guests came over, but my mother and father certainly were, and I was like, well, you know, I never get the best because I'm never a guest, and I'm never allowed to be there when the guests are getting the best. So I used to go in and sneak into the freezer and steal, because my mother kept it in the freezer until she knew someone was coming over, and then she'd defrost it. And I got caught eventually. When I was a kid. Roasted marshmallows. Isn't that a great way to take a break from the work? It's a long job, and I'm really glad that I have the bus to do it in. I've been daydreaming about it ever since I started weaving. It's like, oh, the bus. In fact, when I set up the last one, I did it in the house. And I knew we had a bus, but it wasn't here yet. And I just sat there daydreaming about being able to come out here and do it here. And I thought I could do it on the door handle, which is roughly the same size and shape as the posts that I use, but it's not positioned correctly. And its shape would actually make it hard to get it's not straight. And it's thicker at the end. So it would actually be hard to get the string off as neatly. That probably isn't an issue. But, I don't know, I clamped the thing on and the clamp seems to be holding. I wasn't able to use the built-in clamps that came with the loom. But my hardware clamps are doing a pretty nice job. Both holding the loom onto the table and holding the yarn holding the yarn post up. So, well, what a way to spend some time, huh? Nom, nom, nom. Work on the bus has halted. It's in a livable enough condition that I will probably get back to it after January when I start getting kind of itchy and antsy again. Right now it's like going into the long dark winter. I'd rather sit in front of the TV all warm and weave. But after January, the very temperatures we're experiencing now suddenly start to feel very warm indeed. And there will probably be, you know, spring fever will take over. So I'm going to turn the camera off. It took me quite a while to notice that marshmallow beard.
Get back to work here.
Oh dear. I had no water in the bus, so cleaning it off wasn't that easy. But I did, because, you know, you don't live forever with a marshmallow beard. I thought this would be a nice angle to see this from for a while. Just me going and going and going, stringing that thing up. Back and forth and back and forth. And here I am tying weaver's knots. And you could see me here in the video tying hundreds of weaver's knots. Just, I have no idea. I'm tying them even as I narrate this. It's that bad. Above the thing you can see there a vent in the bus. We actually put that vent in, and it's just a standard RV vent. There's no fan or anything. And the rest of this back area, other than painting it, was not insulated or built up at all. It's going to be used like a workshop area. I want some flooring in there, but I kind of wanted to stick with the maximum space available in there. And I'm going to put some fold up shelves, tool racks and things. But I kind of want to get the back done and the ramp built so that I can bring in my smart car. Because this area is supposed to fit my smart car. And when the car's in, then I can get a much better idea of how much space I've got for fold-down tables and shelves and counters and storage areas and tool hanging and all of that fun stuff that I want to do with this area. I'd kind of like to put some of my paintings up too, because the stained glass ones that I've got up in there aren't the only artwork I want to keep. I've got quite a bit actually. Some of it I keep looking at on the internet to see if I can sell it for anything. The only one I've got that's even close is a painting by an artist from Thunder Bay from the 70s, who is now selling for up to $500 a painting. I paid $80, so in that sense I'm realizing a profit, but then I paid $80 in 1979. And not only that, but if you consider the cost of the frame, you're up. Most of that cost right there is just the frame on a painting. So I don't really consider $500 to be a lot. Yeah, I thought it was kind of cute watching the yarn bob up and down as I worked that last little ball of yarn. Every time I went through a ball of yarn, there was this little bit of yarn bar bobbing up and down at the underneath against the window, and I thought, oh, I'm going to catch some footage of that. And I did. Here you are, Houseman. That's a folding workbench. I don't even remember where I got it. I think it was part of the kit of some sort. It was a really good deal. It folds up flat. So, my boss has this warp spread out through it all the way to the end with a string just randomly there because it's not long enough to reach all the way. All the way goes the warp, and the loom is clamped in here, and I'm that far short of the end of my warp, and there is no light blue wool of any sort available in the city at any shop. Seriously, there's no light blue wool left. There's acrylic blends, a wide variety of acrylic and acrylic blends. Let me just adjust the lighting. I'm holding a spotlight. There's a huge variety of acrylic blend things available, but in terms of blue wool, forget about it. And I almost couldn't find the white wool. And at one wool shop, they said that they haven't received their order since the bus strike. Apparently, some of the wool comes in by bus. So here I am, or bus strike. They canceled the provincial bus service, and with it goes a lot of small deliveries. So apparently now they're having trouble getting the wool that they need. So I can't finish my warp, let alone start weaving. I mean, really? Wow. That's a little frustrating. I'm going to go online now and see if I can find the wool I need. So, this was the next day. Knowing that I was out of wool, I decided to use up the wool that I had wound up on the shuttle because I had 1.5 strings of blue left in this group. I had groups of 4 white, 10 blue, 4 white, 10 blue, which is actually 2 teeth white, 5 teeth blue, 2 teeth white. So I had left one last group of white and blue, plus I had 1.5 runs left in the current group, so I had to go 1.5 blue, 4 white, 10 blue, 4 white. And so like another 15, 16 teeth. And the shuttle, in the end, the shuttle simply could not go the full distance, could not provide enough wool for the last group of 5. So I finished the group of 5 that I was on, and finished the last 30 strands with white, so that I have a stripe of white at the end. And because I'm so low on the blue, I'm also going to put in that 30 strands at a time stripe at the start of the weaving, and then I haven't decided whether to continue that as a pattern or just let it be there, a peculiar thing. I do have yarn coming, and it looks like it will come fast enough in the mail. So that's kind of what I'm waiting on, is I'm just going to take my time, make this video, tie some string together, and oh, did I ever have a lot of tying to do. That's, yeah. Tie string, economize my wool, take my time, and see if this yarn gets here before I get caught up to the shortage. At which point I will which point I'll make up my mind what I want to do about it. Pretty much. Oh look, I've begun to wind the warp onto the roller. After you've strung it all up, then you carefully, keeping the tension on it, you carefully roll the yarn with separators, cardboard strips, or in this case, paper bags from leaf collecting. Anything wide enough and stiff enough that it's going to keep the yarn tension even and keep some of the strands from slipping off the ends or tangling with the layer below it. And this was a really challenging job because I had to go up a step and through a narrow doorway at this point here. And even as I did this, the yarn kept breaking, and I would notice the break after the end had been rolled up, and I'd have to back off and unroll it, find the broken yarn, string it back up, add some more yarn in very often, get the tension right, then back to rolling it on. Whew! I was surprised at how long it took to do this. I really was. Some people say I have a lot of patience. Now I know they're right. But, you know, it's worth it. You can't do this without patience. You simply can't. And patience isn't something that you are given at birth. Patience is something you decide to exercise every time the opportunity arises. Until getting that way gets easier. You find yourself more able to just take a breath. Go, yeah, it's okay. I will get there. I don't need to have a schedule. I don't need to just do it. Just go ahead, do it again. Yeah, that's what it takes. And that's how patience is built. You just learn to stop whining about it and get it done. As you can see, I've got half the warp wound on already. Look at that. Look at me go. I know, it's 8x speed. That's a way of cutting out the audio from the TV, which is playing copyrighted videos from YouTube, coupled with saving you the hours and hours and hours of time it took to do this. Oh, I couldn't find my scissors. I finally found them. They were still clinging to the work table, but I wound up getting a utility knife out of the toolbox because I'm just not about that sort of thing. If something's missing, then let it be missing. It'll turn up later. I'll find another solution. There's no point in working yourself into a lather hunting for something that's missing. Really no point. It's just ego. It's just like, darn it, how dare it get away with not being findable? And no, let it go. Figure out another solution. Feel clever instead. And in fact, the scissors turned up. And yeah, here I am, tying knots, checking strings. Oh, I'm getting too warm. No, I did not flash you. I didn't. It's close, I see. I didn't actually flash anything. Oh, I'm getting excited now. I'm like, oh, I'm almost there. Got almost rolled up. I'm going to take this inside and get out of this bus. And I actually spent the next couple hours after I was done hanging out in the bus, roasting marshmallows and watching videos with my dogs. So I've reached a point where I realize you can make too long of a warp.
Look at that thing. Look at how much
It's rolled on so tight, it'll soon fail to clear. And I've run out of paper inserts to keep it from going off the sides. That's what the paper does. It keeps it from doing this, which just completely messes with the tension. So I'm going to tie off a bunch of stuff over here in some fashion in order to keep the tension, and then I will release it from there and I will cut it. Then I can take this in and do the work of, because these are all strung through, one of each of these strands has to be put through the holes. They're all through the strips, and there's two in each longitudinal, and one has to be put through the hole. So that's another tedious job of stringing it up. And then they all have to be tied onto here. So I'm going to do that in the house after I get this done. So here I am in the house. I've put a lot of knots in this thing so that it holds itself, and I'm going to be cutting it off so I can tie it onto the stick. which means I'm going to have all this extra yarn, and so I can actually do quite a lot of the warp with this, because you can use pretty short pieces for the warp. So that'll help. I can actually get started a little bit while I wait for my mail order yarn. So, yeah, that's a lot of warp on this thing. I hope it works out okay. The last time I did a very long warp, I had issues with tension, and this one's almost 3 times longer. So it could get interesting. As promised, here I am in 4x speed, pulling every other strand through the holes, and when I drape them off to one side, and then they're all going to have to be tied to that warp stick at the end in order for the tension. Oh, it was a slow job, really slow. And of course I missed a couple, so I kept having to, even after I started it was when I started weaving that I noticed I missed a few. Here I'm showing you tying some of them to the warp stick. First I do one side, then the other side, then the middle. That way I get an even tension across. If you just do, you know, by having the 2 ends pulled tight, the rest of it gets a fairly even tension. You can see it there. So I can check the tension, and if any of it's loose, I can undo them in groups and make it tighter. But in fact, it's pretty even across the board right now. So I'll be able to start weaving this next batch. Yeah. Gonna be pretty. A little bit strange having this band of white. But we'll see how that comes out.